welcome one and all. This is the very first episode of Beard and the Boyo podcast. Don't grin at me like that, you love the name. It's the best name of all time. Right, topic of conversation on this very first episode is the very recent Doctor Who series that has just aired, starring Jodie Whittaker as the Doctor. What series is this? 11. Series 11 we're on now. You can talk now, you don't have to move your fingers.
Hello.
So, yes, John Bowen.
It's Series 11.
It's Series 11, so we have... we're good for sound, So, this is Series 11, and during the course of watching the episode, I thought, you know what, we've got a lot to discuss about here, and we started having a chinwag about it during a FaceTime, and we thought, hang on, there's some insight to be had here. So, what we're going to do is first discuss... our initial impressions, what we were expecting going into the series. We're going to break down each episode as we go along, hopefully not spend too much time on it. And then, what we thought about the ending, and what we think about going into the future, where do we think Doctor Who is, what everyone was aiming to achieve when they were making the series, so on and so forth. So grab yourself a lovely cup of tea, chocky bicky, or just decide this video isn't for you now and go off it. If it's you, Mike, hi Mike, get off Twitch. But yeah, here we go. Okay, so obviously, Peter Capaldi left. Jodie Whittaker was announced as the Doctor. There was a bit of a oh my goodness, first time it's a female Doctor. What are we going to expect? What's going to be different? How were you in the very early days of it?
Well, I was not in favour of the idea of a female Doctor, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
But once it got announced, and once I was kind of like, okay, this is a thing that was happening, I was like, okay, this is fine. I wouldn't have gone for it myself, but let's just go for it. Let's just see. It is true that there are generally more science fiction out there that have male leads. So I think it'll be something new. It'll be something refreshing to have a female character.
Yeah.
At the lead. So yeah, I was okay with that going forward. By the time the series was getting ready to air, I was quite excited. I was quite excited to see. Obviously, we'd seen a trailer by this point. Could see that Jodie Whittaker was going to be playing it very differently to how Peter Capaldi played it, which is a shame because I'm a massive fan of Peter Capaldi's Doctor and what he did with the character. But there are the character always changes, the dynamic of the show always changes. We had the new writer as well, the new showrunner.
Absolutely.
So we always knew going in that there was going to be a big change, and I was ready to go in with kind of an open mind and just sort of accept whatever it threw at me.
Yeah, I remember the morning they were going to announce it during Wimbledon, who the new Doctor was. I remember thinking it'd be very jarring, but the show's been quietly laying the breadcrumbs that Time Lords can change gender. And then at the very last minute, Jodie Whittaker shot to the list of the favourites. I remember thinking, you know what? If it's going to be a woman, that's actually a really good choice. Because I have watched Broadchurch. I don't think you've seen Broadchurch.
I've never seen Jodie Whittaker in anything.
She's a tremendous actress in Broadchurch, and Chris Chibnall obviously wrote that. So you can see obviously how Jodie Whittaker ends up playing the part. So like you, I was very much hit me with your best shot. Let's see what you've got. And I remember watching the trailer. I wasn't massively wowed by the trailer, but then I remember thinking, no, this is Chris Chibnall, and based on what he'd done for Broadchurch, he always keeps his cards very close to the chest. So I was half, waiting to be surprised and shocked, and especially if you look at the last few series of Doctor Who, where like a lot of their big points they've kind of spoiled in trailers and stuff. For example, in Peter Capaldi's second series, they spoiled Gallifrey for a lot of people. I wasn't one of those few, but I know it was spoiled. John Simmer's The Master, I thought would have been how that episode was of what was it called, World Enough in Time.
Yeah.
You can tell how that episode was filmed and shot and everything. They made it with the intention of not everybody knowing, that John Sim was going to be in it, and that was spoiled. So as much as I was waiting for something to go, okay, I'm ready for this series, akin to when Matt Smith first came on board and his first trailer came out, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, this is still Doctor Who, I'm very excited for this. We didn't get that, but at the same time I'm thinking, no, Chris Chibnall loves to keep things close to his chest with Broadchurch, so I will maintain a an open mindset, and we'll go for there. But what were you thinking was going to happen in the first episode? Going into it, what were you expecting? What were you thinking could happen and all?
I mean, I pretty much got what I expected from the first episode.
Right,
really,
okay.
I have to say it wasn't. It wasn't up there with the best of series openers, but I think I don't think I was expecting it to be, because we knew that it was going to be set in the present day. We knew it was going to be obviously introducing not just one new companion, a new Doctor, but 3 new companions, a new Doctor. I always expected the story to be quite rushed. I always expected the villain to be quite forgettable, because that's not what the episode was about.
No.
It was about establishing these new characters, showing us the new Doctor, what she's about, bringing in the new characters, explaining why they're travelling with the Doctor. And it had a lot going against it, I think, because it was only an hour long, and they had to
get in so much.
They had to get in so much, and I think if you look at a lot of series openers, who sort of remembers the Autons or the Atraxi or kind of all the others that have. What even was Clara's first villain that she faced?
She got introduced so many.
They controlled a plane at one point, didn't they? Like there was crashing into.
Oh, that's not even her first episode.
No, but when the actual one got introduced.
Exactly. So it was some unforgettable thing about the Spoonheads.
Yeah, I have to say, I found the first episode very rushed, and I felt like by the end of it, I wasn't perhaps as aware of what Whittaker's Doctor was going to be like.
Yes.
In comparison to perhaps with Capaldi or Smith.
Yes.
But then Capaldi and Smith, with Smith, I think the 11th hour is like an hour and a half, isn't it?
I think it's an hour and 15.
Hour 15. So it was a lot longer. They only had one new companion to introduce. And even then, with Smith's Doctor, how much of him do we really see in the first episode in comparison to what we get throughout series 5?
The thing is, I think the more I look back at the 11th hour, the more I think it was just like they got lightning in a bottle. For me, that was the perfect way to introduce a Doctor. In the same way that like David Tennant's introduction was very good, but I remember coming out of Peter Capaldi's one being like, I'm not sure, I'm not quite decided on his Doctor. It's only when I've looked back, since then, and I'm the same as John. I love Peter Capaldi's portrayal as the Doctor, but I don't remember his introduction being particularly memorable. And I'm in the same boat as you. Going into the episode, I was expecting certain things which I didn't see. So, for example, at the end of Twice Upon a Time, you see the TARDIS almost throw the Doctor out of the TARDIS, and then dematerialise. And I was thinking, is Chibnall being set up for an episode where the Doctor has to almost prove to the TARDIS that it's still the Doctor, even though there's been a gender change? And I feel like the TARDIS is being set up as like this metaphor for the audience,
which would have been great. In the same way they did the whole thing with Peter Capaldi when Jenna Coleman was kind of complaining that he'd like turned old, and you had the Silurian talking around, and that was great, and that was a real kind of stand-in for the audience and for the audience reaction.
All these people who were like used to a young Doctor, and all this is like their Peter Capaldi was their first taste of an older Doctor, and I think they did really well in that episode with that. So I was expecting. I remember going in thinking I'd rather they didn't go every week saying, "Look, she's a woman now, deal with it." But I liked the idea of addressing it in some form. And that, for me personally, that wasn't addressed not at all in the opening. And I felt like, as much as I like the approach of the Doctor's gender doesn't matter, it would have been. I feel like it was a little bit of a missed opportunity just to like in that first episode when, again going back to Matt Smith's first episode, very quickly I was like, yes, he's the Doctor. I don't miss David Tennant anymore. Bear in mind I was like 15, 16 I think at the time, but apart from that bit on the crane where she stands up to Tim Shaw and says, "I've just remembered who I am. I'm the Doctor," but it felt a little bit forced, a little bit, it felt a little bit out of place in what the episode was. And like you say, they were introducing 3 companions, a semi-forgettable villain, and in there as well, you had a groundbreaking moment of the first female Doctor, and like you, I just feel like they had so much to do. So, for example, if we had pre-existing companions,
Yeah.
it would have allowed
And
this
that's-
change to.
That is, I'm trying to be democratic here, but that I think it was a mistake introducing
I
all
agree.
three of them in one episode. Like,
I
when you
agree.
look at previous... I know, obviously, back in the kind of Hartnell days, like, they did that, but bearing in mind, in those days, like, each story was about 4 episodes long.
Yes.
Whereas here, you know, all you had to do in the very first episode, was just bring in the companions, the TARDIS, then they went to prehistoric Earth, and that was it.
Yeah.
Whereas here, you've got to get in with a story, get out again within an hour, and do all this character development. When you look at previous Doctors have come in, they've either had a companion already,
Yes.
or they've had just one companion to begin with, and others have come in. Like, obviously,
Yes.
they waited until about episode 5 or 6 to make Rory a companion in Smiths.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
know, it was quite long.
Mickey
till-
Smith only
Mickey
joined
Smith,
the TARDIS
yeah.
in the second series.
Obviously, we didn't get Captain Jack till the second half of Series 1.
Exactly.
And they had that time just to develop the Doctor, with, obviously through the eyes of the companion.
Yeah.
In terms of, obviously, them doing the whole TARDIS not recognising the Doctor thing, I think that's a brilliant idea.
Yeah.
And that would have been a great idea. I understand why they didn't do it at the same time,
Yes.
because the whole idea of Series 11 was it was meant to be a bit of a semi-reboot.
Yes.
So that I feel like if they'd gone down that road...
You'd have to lay into what's come before.
Yeah.
All that as well.
So they had this opportunity, obviously, new Doctor, no companions left, to just completely reboot the thing.
Yeah.
And, you know, they didn't have to make reference to previous stories. They could just... So I understand why they took the decision not to do that, even though it would have been a great idea.
Yeah.
And it is a bit of a shame to see it botched after it was done so well when Capaldi first started.
Yes.
But, yeah, I'm not going to get hung up on that.
No.
Because, you know, I just feel that wasn't the approach Chibnall wanted to take, and I can respect him for that.
Yeah. So that's one of the things I personally didn't like. One of the things I did like, how gorgeous the series has been shot now. They've obviously stepped up their game. They've obviously lost a few episodes, but they've taken that money and thrown it at some serious cameras, and everything is shot like a film now. It goes into this whole, you know, these big budget TV series. So this is Doctor Who's been shot this way, so sort of you rival your Game of Thrones. You know, these big series in America. You know, Doctor Who's like its attempt to go toe to toe with some of these. So I was really impressed with the visuals. Something I did not like was that there were no opening titles. I found that really jarring.
Yeah, and I don't like it when shows do that.
No. But especially for Doctor Who, something as iconic as its opening titles, and just getting ahead of ourselves a bit. The opening titles are gorgeous, and I like the music, so I don't understand why they didn't do it. You know, especially when they were trying to they needed to get people on their side very quickly. Not showing that, and not showing the TARDIS as well.
That was such an odd decision.
I found that really strange.
Yeah, like, again, to get ahead of ourselves slightly, I was so convinced that you know how in Series 9, where they kind of got rid of the sonic screwdriver for a bit, and then it came back at the end?
Yes.
I was so convinced they were doing that with the TARDIS, that, like, it wouldn't appear till the series finale, and it would be this massive...
Like, hop across the universe.
Yeah, this massive sort of return for it, and it was... Which would have been fantastic, personally. But, like, obviously, again, getting ahead of ourselves, I appreciate it, but it came back in the second episode.
Yeah.
I just felt, what was the point in that? Why not just bring it?
Yeah,
if you're only going to bring it back in the second episode, why not just bring it back in the first one?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I appreciate, like, it gave the first 2 episodes a bit of a lead in, and it meant, in many ways, it possibly saved, you know, because imagine, like, if the TARDIS had been there, they'd have had to have found a reason for the 3 companions to start travelling with the Doctor within that episode.
Yes.
And at least it saved that because they were taken along by mistake. So it meant that we could deal with that in future episodes.
Absolutely.
And it did save a bit of time. But still, they could have done that with the TARDIS being around. You know,
Yeah,
I don't think the TARDIS being there would have limited that.
No.
So,
One thing that also got to me, going back to the very beginning of the episode.
Yeah.
Jodie Whittaker's Doctor fell through a train from a massive height and was fine.
Hasn't it kind of established that the Doctor kind of has...
Now, I'd like to accept that.
Yeah.
But now, I apologise if there's any like classic Whovians on here and I get this completely wrong. Didn't Tom Baker's Doctor have to regenerate when he fell off a radio
He did
tower?
indeed, yeah. Yeah.
So, it threw me that
But
this
she
Doctor
had
fell from a
just
great
regenerated as well. And when you remember, David Tennant regrew his hand shortly after.
That's true, yeah. And to be fair, he did survive a massive fall in the end of time.
So I do feel like
I just found it very odd that she got up from that and was absolutely fine.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a quibble more than anything else. I just found that very odd. One thing I didn't like was how much of a contrast Grace, the grandmother, had to the rest of the characters. Because after a few scenes, I thought to myself, right, she's going to die at the end of this episode, and that's what's going to unite them. And it was just very predictable. Like, there was that line right at the end when they were when her and Graham were trying to get those cables to electrocute the Stenzer's weird floaty squiddy thing, and she said something like, "Is it just me that's really enjoying myself?" And I just felt, come on, she's definitely dying now. Like, it's almost like being set up really obviously. Like, there's this thing in The Walking Dead where if you overdevelop a character, it's because she's gonna, he or she is getting killed in a few episodes' time. It just smelt very much of, you just want the audience to feel, and it, by the time her death came, it was of no shock at all. It's very sad. It was still like a sad moment, but it was something that I was perfectly expecting to happen.
Yeah, I mean, there was never any mystery to it because we knew that the other three were going to be regulars.
Yeah.
And we hadn't seen anything of her
No.
in any of the promotional stuff, so she was always doomed from the start.
Yeah.
Whether or not I would put that as a negative about the episode, I don't know, because I feel like that is just kind of what it is, when even if they hadn't put in the kind of, the massive hints that you mentioned, it's still obvious that, she
wouldn't be going in the TARDIS.
Yeah, she's a relative of both Graham and Ryan. So, there's no way they're just going to, up and leave her after this. She's been so involved. She was always doomed, as far as I could tell.
Yeah.
Whether or not that could have been done differently, I don't know. And I feel like, again, not she ends up becoming quite an important figure in future episodes. So,
yes.
I think there was a reason for her to be there, and she served a purpose as a character.
Yeah.
So whether there was any way of doing it so it wasn't quite as predictable, I don't know.
Yeah.
But again, I do feel it in many ways with an episode like that, you almost have to just strap yourself in and just go with it.
Yeah.
And it's it's going to be predictable because it's that sort of story.
Yeah.
It's just a bit of a fast-paced thriller. I guess the idea is you're not supposed to have the time to stop and think about what's going to happen. You've just got to strap yourself in and go for it.
Yeah.
Is that? I don't think that's a positive or a negative. I think it's just a way of telling a story.
An approach.
Yeah. 100%. And whatever.
It's one of those things. One thing I did definitely like is that for once the Doctor basically made her own sonic screwdriver. I'm not that fussed on the design, but I liked that element, so if it wasn't just given to her by the TARDIS or anything.
Though where did she get the stuff to make a sonic screwdriver from?
I want to say it was the Stenza technology.
Oh, was it? Maybe it was, actually.
I think she incorporated a bit of that, which I still found very, had to make that leap.
Yeah.
As in, just go with it. If I started thinking about it too much, it starts to hurt my head a little bit that she could just fashion a sonic screwdriver.
One thing I would like to say is that I wasn't massively taken with Whittaker's performance at the end of that episode.
Yeah.
She felt very much like watching a fan video of someone playing the... It felt like she very much went through the motions. We had the kind of... the bit where she's first appeared and she's quite dippy and...
Yes.
all over the place, which is what's going to happen with all of the more recent ones.
Yeah.
Then we had the big kind of dramatic speech where she kind of comes into her own a bit.
Doctor.
Yeah. And then... I felt very much like... I just didn't, apart from being a woman, I didn't see what she was doing differently to kind of the others, whereas with kind of Smith and Capaldi, you straight away you saw how they were going to be playing the Doctor differently.
Yeah.
There was plenty of familiar beats to kind of keep you comfortable, but there was definite ways that you just saw kind of, okay, this is a new Doctor. Yes, I can buy it's the same character, but it's a different portrayal of the same character.
Yes.
Whereas with Whittaker, I just found, and I'm sure this is not her fault in the slightest. This is down to the way it was written.
Yeah.
But I just didn't see. I just thought, this is where she's gonna, come up with this ad hoc idea to kind of sort it out, and this is where, she's gonna do the speech where she's all like, I'm the Doctor, and this is what I do, and here comes the it's all calmed down now. Here comes the clothes change and everything.
Yeah.
It was I found it so like beat for beat.
Yeah, it was very formulaic. If a fan wrote an episode, this is how they do it. If they wanted to appease and get an audience in.
Yeah.
To be fair, though, it kind of, like you said before, there were certain things the episode had to do, to get everything in, and the audience was 8.2 million, which is like the highest.
And I do want to talk about audience figures, but I think there'll be a place for that later on.
Yes, and that's interesting you say that, because I actually don't know what the audience figures are for the rest of the series, so if you do, that's pretty helpful. Yeah. So, coming out of the first... And, side note, I really enjoyed when a drunk man threw a kebab at an alien.
I'd forgotten about that bit.
I thought that was... it's sad that moment stood in my head, but that was just something that is 100% what somebody in Britain would do if someone in a funny costume was there. So I applaud that level of accuracy. Good old Sheffield. But I remember tweeting about the first episode, and I said solid, not spectacular. That was, and part of me was at this point a little bit with the rose tinted spec still, wanting to see the show do well. But there were certain things I liked, certain things I didn't like. Like you, I wasn't massively sold on Whittaker, but having known what she's done previously, I was, putting that down to the whole, she's just a bit dippy because she's just regenerated. Yeah. So I went into the next episode, thinking, I'm still watching this.
Yeah.
I'm still going to watch this when it's on TV. And then we rolled into episode 2. Was it the Ghost Monument? I apologise by the way. I've only watched each episode once.
No, same.
So I'm not, if I miss, if either of us miss something, or we get something wrong, we apologise profusely for that.
I'd agree with your verdict on the first episode. It did its job.
Yes,
I think it did its job. It got the 4 characters together. It got them into space. It re-established. For anyone new watching, and I think this is a big thing to bear in mind when we come to talk about this, is that it was. This was not an episode. This was not a series that was written for the fans.
No,
it was written for the mainstream audience, and I think that there are justifiable reasons for why that was done.
Yes,
which we'll talk about later on.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think that's an angle that we've got to look at. It reintroduced the Doctor.
Yeah,
it brought in the new companions and sort of brought people into that world.
Yeah,
job done. It wasn't spectacular. It wasn't up there with even with other
introductions.
Like it was not up there with the 11th Hour. It was not up there with Deep Breath. It was not up there with even
the Christmas Invasion,
or even like some of the smaller ones like Smith and Jones. But do you know what I mean? It did its job. It got us where we needed to be, and fair enough. I can applaud that.
Yeah. Small leaning into the music as well. Yeah. Because obviously it was a brand new composer. It wasn't Murray Gold. I'm terribly sorry, I've forgotten the name of the new composer. It never did anything particularly memorable for me, the music. Now in my head I can hear the Doctor's theme tune now. It has got memorable beats to it, but it didn't do anything particularly spectacular in the first episode. But yes, okay, so we move on to episode 2. Straight away, opening titles. Yeah. They're gorgeous. And I've been following that YouTuber for many years. And when I found out it was him, I was like, of course it is. It's very reminiscent of his style. So a slight side note of just well done to that.
They were fitting, I think, definitely for a more low beat series.
Yes.
Those sorts of titles would not have worked for in the Smith era. The Smith's opening titles, they were big, they were bold, and that was Smith's era all over. Even Capaldi's era, which was a lot more introverted than kind of previous efforts, I still think they wouldn't have worked. They were proper kind of back to basics. They were slow, they were eerie, they were low key, they were just doing their thing. They weren't trying to bring attention to themselves, and that was perfect. And in many ways, I think that sums up Series 11. Yeah, it was low key. It was doing its thing. It was not trying to break the boat. Yeah, and I respect that. I think that's a great way to go. Yeah. I do miss the cold openings though.
Jumping back to the one we fell to earth very quickly, I thought this is a bloody long cold opening.
It's been about an hour so far.
Yeah, I was waiting for my title. So when I finally saw those at the start of episode 2, I was like, they were gorgeous. Why were they? Where were these last week? These are gorgeous. These are absolutely gorgeous. I love the purple visuals. Yeah. I love the pulsating vortex. I love the music behind, almost like a very bassy version of the Doctor opening titles. I thought they were fabulous. and obviously went to episode 2. Again, very gorgeous to look at. I enjoyed the opening, like the opening few minutes, where they're in the crashing spaceship.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you noticed, but it was like one continuous shot as it went round the top, as it went round the ship.
I didn't spot that.
So when
that might have been because I was eating spaghetti.
Might be because you were eating spaghetti.
Yeah.
But you know when they jettison, when like she barks orders, you know, you need to jettison the back half of the ship for us to land safely. That's all in one shot, and you even see it getting jettisoned in the same shot.
Yeah.
And straight away, I was more impressed with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor because she was, you know, commanding a bit of authority. This is like her serious side. I was like, okay, I like this. You know, she's playing some better notes for me personally. Obviously, they crashed, and then, you know, comes very quickly this very forgettable story about trekking across this desert scape. One thing that I noticed was a lack of any sort of real villain, all humans, nothing too imaginative. Well, one thing that really cheesed me off was the robots that were guarding the temple.
Oh, yeah.
It just... Now, obviously, I've just seen the finale and those robots came back, but at the time I was watching this thinking, these are very unimaginative. This is something that a fan episode would do. You know, robots shooting guns. You know, as opposed to if this was in the hands of Stephen Moffat, you know, that their build-up would have been very sinister. It would, you know, like, would have been a very imaginative security thing. And then obviously you had these weird bandage monsters.
I quite liked the bandage monsters. They were not on screen long enough.
No, they weren't.
But you know, if the main aim of Doctor Who is to look at everyday things and think about how to make them scary, it's like Chibnall has done that with bandages.
Yeah.
I mean, that's great.
Yeah.
You know, like, that's you know, if you thought Moffat had done it all, then, you know, Chibnall proved him wrong here.
Yeah.
It's like, he looked at, you know, like, kids are going to be scared every time their parents take a handkerchief out to blow their nose.
Yeah, yeah. Did it have the same impact as, say, when the Weeping Angels were introduced?
Well, I mean, nothing's going to top the Weeping Angels.
No, but, you know what, Stephen Moffat's had this very good gift of, like, making you very aware of your own senses. So he had Listen, Blink, you know, obviously I know Listen does polarise a lot of people, but for me, you know, just the simple concept of something under your bed is, you know, like, so these bandages, they didn't carry anywhere near
they weren't directed well enough, but as an idea, they were great.
I appreciated the idea, but it wasn't built on particularly.
No, I wasn't saying that at all. But,
I did like that they brought the Stenza back into it as like a name drop. I remember thinking the Stenza aren't very memorable. In fact, I hold them almost akin to a Sarah Jane Adventures villain rather than a Doctor Who villain. Like this, you know, just a man in a prosthetic
with teeth.
But I appreciate a bit of consistency. And then obviously, but the only reason I remember this episode is because of the ending when we got the TARDIS.
Yeah.
Everything else in it was very forgettable. I wasn't massively impressed. Even in some of, you know, because every Doctor Who series has got weak episodes to it that you kind of gloss over and pretend they're not there. But, you know, this, as far as I was concerned, this was 2 semi-forgettable episodes on the bounce, on the back of a new Doctor. And I felt a little bit, not worried at this point, but I was thinking to myself, you need to lower your expectations here, Jake. The TARDIS, the interior, I actually really like the interior of the TARDIS. Harkens it back to this like very mysterious, almost living entity, which obviously is what the TARDIS is. I thought the biscuit gag was quite cute, even though we didn't see it again for the rest of the series. I'm not a massive fan of the new TARDIS. Okay.
I think it's too... It just feels a little bit too over the top.
Right, okay.
Like, whereas previous TARDIS sets, they've been interesting, but they've not been too in your face.
Yeah.
It's just been kind of there, it's been in the background, there's a few interesting elements to it, but it doesn't take over.
Yeah.
This one just felt too much like it just hogs the whole scene whenever it's on.
Yeah.
Like with the glowing pillars and everything.
Yeah.
I just felt like I'm too distracted by the glowing pillars.
It's interesting you say that because every time I see a shot, they establish it in the TARDIS. It's obviously a wide shot.
Yeah.
The first thing I see is the pillars. I'm not looking at the console in the middle. I'm looking at the bright blue, orange things, which visually looks really nice.
Yeah.
But I now that you've mentioned it, I do agree that it does take something away from what I'm supposed to be looking at. Yeah. Which is the Doctor around the console.
Yeah. Like, I can't imagine them doing... When you think of some of the great episodes they've done that have really focused on the TARDIS, like you think of Boomtown, Listen...
the Doctor's Wife.
The Doctor's Wife. I just can't imagine that working now, because just those ruddy pillars would just take over, you know. It is
a smaller set as well, isn't it? You know, the interior doesn't have the same sort of scale. You know, like when a new person walks in, it's the whole bigger on the inside. Yeah. Due to this, you know, the way it's shot, they have lots of high angle shots looking down. You do buy into the whole. This place is massive, and it genuinely is bigger on the inside. Whereas every time it's framed, you know, you've almost got the idea of where the roof is. You know, it looks gorgeous, but I accept its limitations. And I know a lot of people aren't a fan of it as well.
All of that having been said, I really don't feel like we've spent much time with it yet. When you sort of think it really only appears, you know, there's some episodes it didn't appear at all. Yeah. Other episodes, like, it literally just showed up at the end. Yeah. So maybe if we had episodes that were a bit more focused on it, that spent a bit more time in the TARDIS. I feel like we haven't really had any TARDIS scenes.
No, I think the most TARDIS like thing we've had is when it let the Doctor in when she didn't have her key. Yeah. At the end of the Ghost Monument. You know, aside from that, it's become the Doctor's tool again, rather than this unbreakable bond between Doctor and TARDIS that's supposed to always be there.
So maybe I'll warm to it, give it a chance.
Yes. So, obviously looking back at the Ghost Monument, again, it was a little bit...
forgettable. Which I was still prepared to accept at this point. Yes. Because I still felt like the episodes had a job to do. Yes. Because obviously now we've introduced the new characters, but because we had to introduce 4, we had the story to get through, the kind of rush, you know, coming out of the Woman Who Fell to Earth. Yes. I still felt like I hadn't really had the chance to get to know these characters. No. I've talked about the Doctor, which was particularly concerning, but also the other characters, I didn't feel like I really knew what makes them tick. Who are they? Yeah. And so now we've got them, they sort of dumped them all in a desert. Yes. You know, and they had to find their way out. That's a great opportunity to do some character development and to really just get into the meat of who these characters are. Instead, we had one scene about Grace's death. Yeah. I think we had one little bit about Ryan's dyspraxia. Yeah. With the ladder. And I thought, you know, jumping back to One Who Fell to Earth, they've given a character a bit of a disability. I like to see at the end with the bike. I didn't mention that before. Sorry, just jumping back there. Yeah. So, you know, I was very sympathetic to the character. It wasn't an awful lot mentioned of it. Yaz, at this point, we know she's a police officer. That's it. Yeah. So everyone else, again, feels very underdeveloped, very missed opportunity to, you know, alone in a desert sort of thing. Yeah. And then at the end, when everybody else leaves and it's just the Doctor and the companions, the only one who loses their head is the Doctor. Yeah. I felt that was a little bit out of character. Now, obviously, you know, new Doctor, everything, but for all the companions to keep cool heads, and for her to be the one that's panicking was just very jarring, I thought. And again, that would have been, like, in many ways, I'm actually slightly disappointed that they even bothered to include the kind of situation of the week, like the whole thing with the other 2 people and the race to the Ghost Monument. In many ways, why not just dump the Doctor and her companions in a hostile environment for an hour and just see how they get on? Yeah. Set the episode as a road episode, try and get to the TARDIS, and let's just bed in some character development while we're here. Also, another sadly missed opportunity, if they're going to not have the companions enter the TARDIS until the end of the 2nd episode, why did we have that whole translation device in the back of their necks? I mean, how great would it have been for the first time ever to have new characters come in who the companions couldn't understand? That's a really good point. Because they hadn't been in the TARDIS, they hadn't got the translation matrix or whatever it's called. So the Doctor could understand them, but the companions couldn't. And that would have made things... That would just make things a bit more interesting, a bit more unique. It would have perhaps made the episode stand out a bit more. It would have raised the stakes a bit. Yeah, it's like, it's that one where they did that whole thing where the companions couldn't understand the characters of the day. It would have just given the episode a bit of an identity. Yeah. But obviously they chose, just at some point they got these translation things at the back of their necks, which never really got explained.
No.
And just threw away just an opportunity, just do something a bit different, just remind us about the show's mythology a bit more.
What makes the TARDIS so special.
That actually this isn't a world where everybody speaks with a British accent. It's like, it is, that translation matrix is there, and it's... But yeah, anyway, whatever.
One of those things. And then obviously we rolled into Rosa. Now, I feel like this episode I will talk about a little bit more than I should be. Because this... After I watched this episode, I didn't watch Doctor Who for 5 weeks. I had no motivation to watch any Doctor Who. I got very frustrated with the idea of watching Doctor Who. And the episodes just backed up and backed up and backed up. And a lot of that was down to Rosa. Now, I know this episode has been championed by a lot of corners of the internet. And rightly so, because it spreads a great message, informs people of a very important issue of, humanity's history. But my two big issues with it are, one, placing it so early in a new Doctor's run, where I still don't know about I know very little about the Doctor, know very little about the companions, and to put the message so on the nose. So I almost felt very, very silly. There's the scene I will always remember where Yaz and Ryan are hiding in down below in the motel from, because it's like a whites only hotel, I think, and they send somebody round to inspect or something, and they're sitting there telling about how, and obviously the message that Chris Chibnall's trying to get across, which is a great message, is that these issues are still prevalent in today's society, and it's really important that we don't forget that, and I really appreciate that. But then both characters just sit there and basically spoon feed the audience this message. They might as well turn to the camera and say, that's right guys, this is still important in today's society. Instead of letting the audience connect the dots themselves, it just felt, in their desperation to get this across, it wasn't done in the right sort of way. Plus, Jodie Whittaker didn't have any sort of presence, especially in this episode for me. Can you imagine this sort of script in the hands, can you imagine this sort of story in the hands of a more accomplished Doctor that could stand in the face of racism and say, this is wrong, you're not doing this right?
I will defend Rosa.
Yeah.
I think. There's plenty wrong with it.
Yeah.
And I agree with a lot of what you've said.
Yeah.
But...
what did you like about the episode?
I liked the fact that it was almost historical. Mm-hmm. I like the fact that they... the villain was quite a small part of it. Had this, this kind of quite random kind of villain just to kind of set the events off and let the kind of historical events do the rest.
Yes.
I liked that. I think if they tried to do any more with it, it would have at worst been a bit of a missed opportunity. At best been a missed opportunity. At worst been almost offensive to kind of what those people went through.
Yes.
I do agree that it felt a lot like a sort of video that you might watch in primary school about Rosa Parks, and they've kind of added this sci-fi element to make it a bit more interesting, kind of the way the characters kind of talk, almost talked you through it.
Yeah.
But I at the same time, I've said before that I feel like this series was not a series written for fans.
No.
It was a series written for the mainstream audience.
Yeah.
And in many ways, that's almost what it was. It's this is a show that appeals to families. There are going to be kids watching this who might not be aware of these events or of the actual seriousness of racism in our society and in humanity's past.
Yes.
And let's just take this opportunity to teach them about them.
No,
teach them about it.
Completely agree.
It's not meant to be an episode for the fans. I spent the first half of the episode hoping that the villain was going to turn out to be the meddling monk. I really did.
Right.
But obviously I kind of always knew he wasn't going to be. He was going to be a random character. Obviously that's how it did turn out.
I think I liked the metaphor for, it doesn't need the character doesn't need to be developed, because like the whole idea of racism, you know, like this character was obviously like a metaphor for he's racist because he's racist and he's wrong, and that's that. I liked that.
And I do feel I can't really remember the conversation behind. I remember it, but I can't remember exactly what was said. The conversation behind the motel. I know you've mentioned that it's quite on the nose.
Well, they're just sitting there saying, "Oh, I'm still called this where I am. Oh, I'm still called this where I am." And there wasn't.
In a way, though, that it feels like a very realistic conversation. I feel like that's the sort of conversation people would have in that scenario. They would sit and they would, if you're an ethnic minority who is faced with something like that.
Yeah.
I think you would just sit down with another ethnic minority and swap stories.
Yeah.
It did feel very human, and even if the writing was perhaps a bit choppy, I don't have an issue with that scene existing. Right. Yes, I would have liked to have seen the Doctor step up a bit more. They chose not to go down that road. Okay, I'm not going to pick into that too much. Honestly, though, with Rosa, like, I'm glad it exists.
Yeah.
Because when I think it was literally the very next morning after that episode aired, I woke up, the first thing in the news is that some white man has kicked off on a plane because they were made to sit next to a black guy.
Yeah.
And it just says, you know what, this stuff is relevant.
Yeah, yeah.
And we need to make young people aware of this. We need to be teaching this.
Yeah.
And if they want to sacrifice an episode of Doctor Who to do that, I am okay with that. I am prepared to make that payment.
No, of course. I think the biggest issue I have with Rosa is like the message it comes across. Like, I applaud them, and the fact that they went into, you know, like the white people are hurling, like, you know, insults, derogatory insults towards black people, and I applauded Doctor Who for being so ballsy with such like a serious issue. For me, it should have come 3 or 4 episodes later.
Yeah, and I can accept that, and I think
because at the same time, I'm sitting there thinking, as much as this is, you know, and like you say, you know, it's important these issues come across, and you know, given the 2 issues, you know, I'd rather we didn't get any series of Doctor Who at all if it meant that these issues were covered and, you know, the world was aware of it. But it came at, you know, we lost even more time to be introduced to these characters. Like, if this episode had been at a similar position to Demons of Punjab, you know, once we've got a bit more character development behind us, you know, at the end of the day, I'm like you. I'm glad it exists, but it happened a bit too early in the run for me personally.
And I mean, for me, when you log onto the BBC website the following day and there's a whole article about Rosa Parks, with the actor who played her in Doctor Who as like the main article picture, when you're sitting in church a few weeks down the line and the woman speaking actually says, I don't know if anyone saw that episode of Doctor Who about Rosa Parks a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
I was like, it's been so long since Doctor Who has been so in the public eye.
Yes.
And honestly, I am proud to say that I am a long-term fan of a show that will make an episode
stand
like
up
that.
and make those issues,
I'm proud to say that, you know, I have been with Doctor Who through the kind of the darker times and through the kind of moments where it wasn't getting attention and it wasn't getting noticed, and it was very much just this kind of curiosity that a corner of the internet really liked and nobody else really knew about. And I'm proud of it. You know, it's sort of like my friend has received an award or something. You know, is kind of how I feel. And I agree that it might have benefited from being further down the line. Maybe they went in too early with it. But I don't think the series suffered as a result of the pacing.
Or any issues that the series does have
don't come from that as well. More what I meant by that.
Yeah.
And I will stick up for Rosa, and I will say it wasn't perfect, but I'm glad it's there.
Yeah.
And
the scene where they realise they're part of the events and they have to stay in the seats so that Rosa stands up, and like Graham like turns and says, you know, I don't want to be a part of this. Yeah. That was actually a really good moment.
Yeah.
So, you know, like you say, it has its good moments, and above that, it's the message that Rosa carries that is so important. So for me, it wasn't a missed opportunity because it gave the impact it was supposed to give. For me, it was a missed opportunity in the development of this series of Doctor Who. Yeah. Because the episode came at the detriment to the existing characters that we know of. But again, there's you know, that's roughly it in a nutshell. And okay, we've spent a fair bit of time.
Well, we did warn you.
Well,
we can probably gloss over this next one quite quickly.
We can.
I think we both agreed
things I liked about Arachnids in the UK. The CGI was nice.
Yeah.
You know, the spiders looked nice. That's about it.
Yeah.
The spiders looked good.
I have to say, like, I've mentioned this to you, but I'm going to say, you know when the spiders were, like, going to the boom boom room?
Yeah.
Were you just waiting for some of them at the back to have, like, fluorescent paint and, like...
It was
giant, colourful specks on, you know? It's like, spider disco.
I didn't know what to make of that. And I was half expecting the conclusion to be... The TARDIS lassos that cage with all the spiders in and takes them to some planet where they can coexist happily. But instead they all died in the cage and ate each other, which I found very inhumane.
And it really annoyed me that, like, you had the Donald Trump, let's call him, because that was basically what he was supposed to be.
If anything, him shooting it in the head was actually the kinder resolution.
And it just felt like the Doctor was just disagreeing because it involved guns. Because it's for the sake of argument.
Now, I liked the whole, like, the poking fun at the Donald Trump rhetoric and all that. But it's when he went so on the nose with these guns and Ness, I was like, what are you doing, Doctor Who?
That was what I had the issue with. Like, you can forget Rosa. Like, it was that analogy that was on the nose. Yeah. It was that got to me. And, when he was... the Doctor was kind of scolding him for, like, building his hotel on this wasteland, and he was sort of saying, well, that's what you do in business. And I'm like, well, yeah, that is what you do in business. I never thought I'd come out of an episode of Doctor Who agreeing more with the Donald Trump allegory than I did with the Doctor. Yeah. It's like, that is a fail, in my opinion. Yeah. Like... Do you know what I mean?
I'll tell you the biggest crime of this episode. Now, at this point, I'd argue Yaz was the most underdeveloped so far. When they walked into that hotel, when she went to pick up her mother, she'd just been sacked from the hotel, and the Donald Trump guy and one of his security walks up, and the security points a gun at her. I'm waiting for Yaz to say, I'm a police officer. What are you doing? Put your gun down. No, none of that. It's almost like the writers forgot she was a police officer. I just thought it was so late. Did Chibnall write this episode?
He did, yeah.
Then for me, he's got no excuse there.
No.
Absolutely no excuse whatsoever.
It was just...
She should be, what are you doing? I'm a police officer.
It just felt like... Yeah, it was such an opportunity as well for the companion to be kind of strong-headed and kind of use who they were rather than just who they were because they travel with the Doctor.
Yeah.
To kind of use that and be like, no, this is my territory.
Yeah.
She's a copper.
Yeah.
And she would have been a copper regardless of whether she met the Doctor or not.
Exactly.
And, just be able to actually stand as a character in her own right. And it got completely botched.
Yeah.
And there was no conclusion to the episode either.
No.
They locked the spiders in the room and then the mother one just died.
Yeah.
Like, there was no moment of peril, no kind of point where, you thought, how are they going to pull this off?
Again, felt very much like a Sarah Jane episode.
Yeah.
A bit of fun you tune into. Ooh, look at the nice
I'm sure
spiders.
even the Sarah Jane episodes were better than that.
They probably carried more heart.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? Like the whole, like, Monster of the Week, let's move on sort of thing.
Yeah.
This was a chance to meet the companions. They're all back in Sheffield. Extend their stories a bit. We got some time with Yaz's family, but it was all very rushed.
It just felt like this is like the Yaz episode. They're like, we've got to do this episode about Yaz, so let's just get this one out of the way, guys. Yeah. There was just no love for it whatsoever.
I did like that Graham went home to see, it was the first time he'd gone home to see, his empty house.
And that says it all, doesn't it? In the Yaz episode, it was the Graham stuff that we've remembered the most.
And the fact that there was inexplicably a spider in his house. Like, it never quite got said, are the spiders all over Sheffield? Are they all over the world?
Yeah.
Surely if you played that boombastic music, you wouldn't have been able to recall all the spiders of Sheffield to your little box. So how did that spider get there? It wasn't really addressed, but... one of those things. It was just a poor episode, and at this point, I was like, because this was the first time I tuned in for about 5 weeks. I mean, I was like, this is more of the same.
Yeah,
this is very much Doctor Who fans, and in general, fans of good television are used to a level of care and craft when it comes to writing stories, and here we're spoon-fed everything. We have issues shoved down our throat. We're not made to, think for ourselves with the episode. At this point, I'm still waiting for Jodie Whittaker to grab a situation by the throat and take charge. instead of waving a sonic screwdriver. I'm doing the motion, by the way, right now. That ridiculous motion, like she's casting Expecto Patronum and everything. It was, it was a complete stumble of an episode, and for me, that's up there with like Love and Monsters as just one of those episodes that...
I mean, give me Love and Monsters any day. At least that knew it was ridiculous.
Yeah.
This one seemed to be taking itself seriously.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll leave that one where it is, because the less we talk about that, the...
So how the heck do you pronounce the episode of it? Is it Tsuranga?
No.
Tsuranga Conundrum?
The Tsuranga Conundrum.
Should we go Tsuranga? Should we go with Tsuranga?
Let's call it Attack of the Pating.
Attack of the Pating.
Because that rolls off the tongue a lot better and makes
I
us look
liked
less
this
like...
episode.
You know what? I liked it as well.
Yeah.
It had issues. The sets got very repetitive. When they were riding through the asteroid field at the end, they didn't want cut to show any of these asteroids. The writing wasn't great again. It feels very clunky. We're going through an asteroid field now, and then 2 minutes later a character go, we're going through an asteroid field now. Like, everything's almost spoon-fed. And you know what I really hated? When the Doctor got really passionate about that energy source.
Oh, yeah.
Almost like she was just trying to, again, tell everybody about this renewable energy source. She's there. It's just like a close-up shot of her hands getting all passionate over this, the way this ship's powered, like, I think it was like antimatter drive or something it was called. I just felt a bit like, why have you taken 3 minutes out of the episode to bore us with, just say it's powerful, that's it, But I digress. I liked the Pating.
Yeah.
I liked they built up this like really quite demonic threat, and it was just like this little creature. I liked that. Go on, what were you a fan of?
Well, the whole thing with the hospital threatening to blow the ship up was a bit stupid.
Yeah.
It's like, just because it doesn't reply. I mean, what if the intercom broke?
Yeah. Does that mean they just blow up a ship because they can't trust it?
But if the bomb had to be there, I like that they managed to conclude that and the Patig in the same package.
Yeah, that was neat.
After the conclusion to Arachnids in the UK was so like just clunky and just messed up. I like that it all got wrapped up so kind of comfortably here.
Yeah.
Like,
here's what it did right.
Yeah.
I made the connection they were going to do that, and then the episode rewarded me with that conclusion. It never once went, oh, we're going to feed the drive to the Pating. It went, think of the drive like a really big piece of cheese.
Yeah.
I was like, you know what? It's a bit ham-fisted, but I can get on board with that.
Bomb blows up Pating, Pating eats bomb.
Yeah. Pating gets
it worked.
airlocked and
It worked
jettisoned,
perfectly. I liked as well, obviously Yaz got to stand up a lot more, kind of she was the main one with the Doctor.
Yeah.
The whole pregnant man thing was weird.
I liked the concept. They spent too much time on it.
I wish it had just led in somewhere.
Yes.
That's the thing. Like, it was good that it gave Graham and Ryan something to do.
But they wrote it in to give Graham and Ryan something to do.
But it did feel like none of the companions were wasted. Like, if we're going to have 3 companions, that's what
you've got to give them all the right time.
We can't have any of them stepping out for episodes.
Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, there was very little about the death of Grace in this episode, about their relationship. You did get that one scene which was talking about Ryan's dad, which was very poorly written and just very odd. It needs to be done because it told us more about Ryan's character, but it felt a little bit, bit forced. I liked the 2 characters, the pilots who had pilot's lungs, or what was that disease?
Pilot's lung or something, I don't know.
Something like that. But it was nice that she got like a little redemption. I found it odd that she suddenly died. Like, it would, her brother took over halfway through.
Yeah.
I kind of would have liked if she'd saved them and then she died, but it was things I didn't like. Jodie Whittaker's Doctor had a bit more to do, but she was very, at this point, 5 episodes in, you've got a flavour of it at this point.
Yeah. It was an interesting thing they did with the Doctor, actually, in that she was trying to, at the beginning where she was trying to get them to return to the TARDIS, and then they kind of said, no, we've got to get these guys to the hospital, and she kind of relents that. I found that interesting.
Yeah.
It's very, very rare that you see the Doctor completely kind of...
Oh, which one do I go for?
Yeah. It's very rare that you see the show actually turn around and criticise the Doctor, I think.
Yeah, call out her...
Yeah, particularly in the T. Davis and Moffat era, I think the Doctor was very much held at this sort of infallible level.
Yeah.
But to see them actually say, no, you're being selfish, you need to just back off.
Yeah, we're a hospital.
Yeah, I found that interesting. I don't know why that was interesting. It was perhaps because it was so out of place for the show, and from what I remember, it never did it again.
No.
Even with Whittaker's Doctor, I think it was just a very interesting way of going about it, and in many ways, it gave Whittaker that kind of other level to her that she needed. That kind of slightly dark. The fact that she's perhaps trying to portray the Doctor as a selfish brat perhaps isn't the right way to go, and it's sad that it never got built on.
Exactly.
But, yeah.
Now, and we can sidestep here because at this point it's halfway through the run. Not once really have we had any sort of malice or like a darker side of Jodie Whittaker's Doctor, which is fine.
Yeah.
Because not every Doctor has to have this dark side, but based on previous stories, I know obviously this show's trying very hard to step away from any other stuff so far, and have no continuity threads for a bigger audience. But somewhere in some parts of the universe, the Doctor is feared, and there's been never any moments where the Doctor is seen as this powerful person. Now, listen, if that's the angle they want to go for, of it's just a lovely person running through the universe having fun, great. But it's something that I found very ironically alienating. That there was nothing really relatable to the character from previous incarnations.
It's such a shame that they and this is what I say. It felt a lot like a fan-made production
series,
in many ways, because when you watch a fan-made series, like, they do tend to focus on the kind of more zany side of the Doctor, and we miss a lot of that. And obviously, I know I've defended the show a few times by saying that it's attempting to reach out to a mainstream audience and bring them in.
Yeah.
But I'm sorry, Series 1, Christopher Eccleston's Doctor, one of the darkest portrayals we've ever had of the Doctor.
Yeah.
That was aimed at bringing the mainstream in. It had to be, because there hadn't been a new episode in about 20 years. Yeah. And that was brilliant. I mean, look at the success that the show enjoyed in the Russell T Davies years.
Yeah.
And that all came from having a strong first series.
Yeah.
There is no excuse for watering down the Doctor
just
to bring in new fans. And I think it's almost offensive to people that watch TV that for some reason the writers felt they couldn't handle a more darker side to the Doctor, a more edgier side to the Doctor.
Yeah.
When you only have to look at the facts to see that is exactly what brings people in. That is what people want these days.
Yeah.
When you look at the sorts of shows that are popular, they're the edgier stuff. People like that edgier, darker stuff.
Yeah.
And the fact that Doctor Who felt it had to get rid of all of that to be popular, for me, is very, very sad. And I know we're aiming at kids, but even kids, I think kids always want darker, edgier stuff.
I think the writers aren't giving their audience enough credit here.
Yeah.
Kids especially are so much more intelligent and are more impressionable, and they're far more intelligent than the average adult writer gives them credit for. And I think to not show them that even in your heroes, we're all, none of us are infallible.
Yeah.
Like you say, to water it down like that was a bit of a shame.
And I just want to come out at this point. I have heard rumours that the BBC were behind this, not Chris Chibnall.
That doesn't surprise me.
So I don't want this to come over as Chibnall bashing, because I don't know if it's necessarily his fault.
Yeah.
But whoever's behind it, there is no excuse.
It's a very big misstep in judgment.
Yeah.
To take out that element of the show, the whole oncoming storm thing.
Yeah.
And that leads me nicely into another point. Correct me if I'm wrong, but at this point, I don't think I've heard her say Time Lord, Gallifrey, Daleks, any of that.
No.
Whatsoever. And I remember when Chibnall came out and said that there's going to be no classic monsters returning. That got me thinking, because now obviously we'll go into this once we've rounded off the series, but there's this rumour that won't go away that the Terry Nation estate owns the licensing to the Daleks, and that if they're not in every series of Doctor Who loses the license to the property. Because originally, back in Christopher Eccleston's first series, it was going to be the Toclafane.
Yeah,
going to be the original villains. It was only a very late change.
They
that meant
definitely
got
had
the
some
right
trouble
to
getting the copyright for the Daleks. I remember
so,
that much.
is it any coincidence that the Daleks have been in every series of Doctor Who, even in Series 6, Matt Smith's second series, when it was in, respectively a cameo series. But it wouldn't surprise me if they had to put that in to keep the Daleks.
That's what I've always worked on.
So, based on that logic, and that's what I going through them, I thought, is Chibnall just doing away with the Daleks here? At this point, half through the series, it dawned on me, if we're not going to have any Daleks, if we're just throwing away, if we're being really reckless with the show's canon here, are we just ignoring so much here? And I was thinking, I like that he's coming in and trying to put his own stamp on it, but now obviously this point will be made irrelevant with what we discussed later, with where it looks like the New Year's Day special is going, but it just seems it seemed very reckless at this point to go down the angle where they were going. And not just that, but with the quality of the writing going down, halfway through the series, nobody had been wowed by any of the episodes at all. Arguably, Attack of the Pating, as we're calling it, was the best of a bad bunch. And even that would be seen as a bad episode in series gone by, or like just a standard episode, forgettable episode. Yeah.
And that is worrying. I think that was my sentiment exactly.
Halfway through a series of this reduced number of series, and we'd had one okay episode. That was really concerning for me. Really concerning. And the whole reason that at this point I was watching the episodes is that when we agreed to do this podcast, it was so that I'd be up to date for it. I wasn't watching the show because I wanted to watch the show. I was watching it so that we could discuss what we weren't fans of. Come, December 28th, 2018, that's when we're recording this. So at this point, it got slightly better with the last episode, but I wasn't re-enthused for the show. But then rolls round the Demons of Punjab, which for me was the best episode of the series up till this point, but still had really bad moments. For me, the quintessential moment was when Yaz said, "Why won't you tell me about this watch?" And her grandmother, who'd given her the broken watch, said, "I'll tell you one day." Now obviously at this point I was like, well, they're obviously going to go back into her past. I was waiting for it to be really clever and say that she knows it was her granddaughter that visited her in the past, and that's why she wouldn't tell her about it, because of time travel and stuff. I was waiting for that really clever moment, because I don't care what you say, if you go back in time and interact with your grandfather or grandmother, don't tell me you're not going to recognise them in the present day. That was a real strange decision for them not to capitalise on that. For me personally, it just felt very odd they didn't go down the route of, I can't tell you yet, but I know you're going to experience it. Because it would have been nice for some great character development if parts of her family knew that Yaz was travelling in time. But correct me if I'm wrong, but Yaz's family don't know that she travels in time. Nothing at all. He's shaking his head, by the way. He's gone on mute again for some reason. But where do you stand with that? What do you think?
It didn't do anything for me, Demons of the Punjab, at all.
No.
It just felt like Rosa all over again.
Yeah.
Maybe that is where Rosa should... Maybe that episode should have been Rosa.
See, I actually got more out of Demons of the Punjab than I did out of Rosa. Because at this point, I knew what I was expecting from the quality of the writing and stuff. So I was more just sitting down for, okay, let's see what each individual episode was going to do. I liked, I didn't know anything about the division of India and Pakistan and everything, so I really appreciate it from that point of view. And I thought that the aliens, ironically, even though they were very poor, I still felt they were the best in the series in terms of aliens so far. The whole just, so I like the concept of so somebody's not alone when they die. That nice idea, but it felt a bit like...
Yeah, it just didn't do anything for me.
No.
I just felt like by this point, because Attack of the Pating had stepped things up, in my opinion, this felt like a step back down.
Right, okay.
And it was like, okay, so the last episode was a fluke rather than the new standard. And yeah, I just felt like because it was sort of the same basic Rosa thing again, it was taking a travesty, a part of human history that's just terrible and should never have happened. But it just sort of took that. You had it built up these aliens as being quite interesting, but then they just sort of turned out to be inconsequential, really. They were just, after you got the explanation about them just being watchers or whatever it was, they didn't appear again until the end, and that was just a short scene.
Yeah.
I just felt like maybe if it had been in another series, it would have been okay.
Yeah.
But it was just too familiar for me. It was just another sort of crash and burn.
Yeah.
In a series that had far too many of them.
Yeah. Okay, so you disliked that episode more than I did, but it still wasn't up there with what I expect of Doctor Who. For me, it was written a bit better than Rosa. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Chibnall did
not write that one,
and that's really bad. When the show and this became a trend as we were watching it, I was more hopeful for the episodes that Chibnall wasn't writing than those he was writing, and that makes me really sad to say that I don't want the showrunner anywhere near episodes. So that was Demons of the Punjab. Was it Kerblam next?
It was Kerblam next.
Kerblam is very much an episode that belongs in another series in terms of quality. It wasn't anything spectacular, and it has its problems still that we'll go into, but it was very much better than everything that came before it.
The best episode of the series for you, in my opinion.
Oh, so far, or
altogether?
Right.
I think. I just felt like I loved the Postmen. I felt like that's the sort of villain that would not have been out of place in like the height of Russell T Davies's era.
Yes.
I feel like I can easily envision them, alongside the can't think of any of his villains now, but alongside like the Weeping Angels or the Clockwork Robots.
Yeah, it's that
that sort of thing.
They're effective for an episode, but it's not one you remember as one from the whole series.
The message with the revelation of who the enemy was, I thought that was really well done.
See, this is the angle that the show should have been going for when it was telling the audience something else, because I don't know if you know, but your big companies that deliver presently, your Amazons and all that, they are poorly run. But the episode got that across without shoving it down my throat.
Exactly.
And, to the point where I was like, oh yeah, this is like your Amazons and your stuff. It trusted me, the audience, to make the jump rather than just saying, look at me, look at me, look at me.
But it didn't demonise that system either. I felt that was where it succeeded. Yes, it said that these things, these systems, like your Amazons, the way employees are treated, that needs improving, and something needs to be done about that. But it didn't turn around and just make the corporations the enemies. It's like, no, they need to improve, but they're not the villains.
Yes.
It's like, this, and you could relate to what I can't remember his name now, the terrorist was doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never wanted him to succeed.
No.
And there was that sort of happy moment at the end where they're like, we are going to improve standards now and stuff based on what's happened.
Yeah.
Everyone's got like paid leave and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, there was no... It felt like it was just giving you this situation, and it let the audience make up their own minds. Like, do we agree with what the guy was trying to do? Are we glad that he was stopped?
Yeah.
What do we think that the situation was a bad one to begin with?
Yeah.
I love that. I think it's exactly what we've been complaining about. It wasn't on the nose.
Yes. It
let the audience do work. And it was just a great episode in and of itself. Like, I thought the postmen were suitably creepy.
The postmen were creepy. I really liked them. I thought Lee Mack's character was criminally underused.
For
who he is.
Yeah. If it hadn't been Lee Mack, it wouldn't have mattered.
It wouldn't have mattered, but they did put Lee Mack in the role, so don't waste Lee Mack. I really like him. I think he's a really funny comedian. But he felt very much, can I have a role in Doctor Who? Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a shame there. I felt the reveal of the villain came out of nowhere, but not in a good way. Like, it just felt a complete flip of his character. Like, there were no breadcrumbs laid.
Having said that, though, we've only watched it once, so maybe we'd have
maybe
to watch
looking
it again.
back,
but I do agree that it did feel like a complete out of the blue as to him being the villain. Like, it wasn't. But again, I suppose it's hard to judge these things when you've only watched them once.
Of course. One thing I did get, which I don't know whether you'll have seen it, when they went back to the very first model.
Yeah.
And it was the whole capturing humans, turning them into something. I was thinking, is the final model a Cyberman? Like, my head went there. My head went there. It really genuinely did. And I thought, if they've kept the Cyberman under wraps, I have to stand up and applaud Chibnall for that. But it never went that way. But that's just something that I thought when they were like going back to the first model, and
Yeah.
So I went up, I was like, where are they going with this? You know, I allowed myself to get excited for a second. I liked that the plot was hidden in plain sight in the episode title.
Yeah.
I liked the little touch at the beginning with the fairs.
Oh yeah. I wasn't even a big fan of the fairs, but like just
it was a nice
just
touch,
to have it there. I think was just like, oh, this is still the same show that you're watching,
and that infuriated me because they do want to reference the old show when they want to. So it's why can't you do it more often? But we've been there, we've chatted about that. So a better episode. For me.
Thumbs up to that.
Kerblam was very much, if it had been in like a previous Doctor series, it'd been one of those that it wouldn't be what you remembered the series for, but it was one of those that it's got rewatch value.
Solid.
When you buy the DVD for the series or the Blu-ray for the series and you watch them back, that is one that you don't begrudgingly watch when you're watching the whole series. It was a better episode. Again, not written by the Chibs, and one that actually addressed Ryan's dyspraxia. And I remember, but if anything, at this point, it infuriated me because, like, why have you taken 5 episodes to readdress this supposedly really important part of his character?
I mean, equally though, where's the balance? Because if you're addressing it every episode, it gets old after a while.
Of course it does, but there's a right way of doing that and a wrong way of doing that, and it just of course he's supposed to be dyspraxic. Where's that been the whole time? Again, the other two companions, the fact that we're not talking about anything they've done kind of emphasises they haven't really done anything.
But then I really liked Bradley Walsh's character. I thought
I like his character. He's not developed that much, but what he does with it, I can appreciate.
I would argue. I would say he's probably the best developed.
He's the best developed
of the three.
He's still like, if it'd been just Bradley Walsh, in the TARDIS, it could have been like a really well developed, really good companion, akin to like a slightly younger Wilfred Mott type thing. But they didn't go for that. But C'est la vie, it's one of those. One of those. But Kerblam in a nutshell was better.
Yeah, brilliant.
Then we went, and then I think I missed another few weeks. I just didn't watch any more Doctor Who for a bit. And then it was the
Witchfinders,
which I liked parts of. And then had very bad parts that dragged it down. For me, did Chibnall write this episode?
No,
he didn't. But it felt very much like something he'd written, because there were certain scenes where, like the tree that was really the lock that kept that race imprisoned. I think we were told that about 4 or 5 times in the whole episode. Like, we are here, we are bad, and then Jodie Whittaker would turn to her companions and go, "They're here and they're bad." Like it was shoved down our throat what they were doing. I found it quite creepy though. I liked that they actually addressed that the Doctor's a different gender now, and that back in medieval times her authority would not count for as much as if she had been a man. I liked that they went down that route. I did not like the portrayal of King James. Was it King James?
It was, yeah.
I'm a big fan of that actor, but do you know what it felt like? It felt like the show was about the actor portraying King James rather than about King James. Like, it felt very panto, very cheesy,
very pantomime villain.
I didn't buy his authority at all, which was really quite frustrating. Every time he was on scene, he just chewed the scenery. Things I liked, as I say, I liked that the Doctor's authority counted for less. You didn't just buy it. I liked that because of her gender, it wasn't, she had something to prove. I liked that she was dunked as a witch. I thought that was great. I liked the creepy reanimations of, and I was like, of the people that got dunked, and I was like, oh goodness, were they actually witches? I liked that side of it. That felt very more old school New Who. I found the bit where I kind of suspected that the woman who was dunking everybody had something wrong with her, but the bit when she transformed into a witch, like all the the creature, I found that quite disturbing. Like, I thought it was like really well done. But the ending was very quick. Again, the companions were just sort of there. Where's your head with it?
I really liked the episode.
Yeah.
I thought it was it was, like you say, it was very classic, old school New Who.
Yeah.
Again, it felt like an episode that wouldn't have been out of place in the T. Davis eras.
Yeah.
It felt like a classic, like, third episode Russell T. Davis.
Yeah.
Kind of outing, you know. I enjoyed King James's character, even though it was very pantomime, but it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And I think every time he was on screen, I think I was just having a whale of a time because it was just so much fun to watch. I agree with you. The dialogue got very repetitive. Like, it sort of annoyed me that they had to stop and mention Satan every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I was kind of like, okay, we kind of get it now. Let's just move on from this.
Yeah.
It was a very comic portrayal of the witch trials. Like, I think if you actually looked at them historically, a lot of that would turn out to be crap. Like, I'm sure it's even been proved that the dunking stool actually wasn't real.
Oh, really?
It was something to do with weighing vegetables or something. Don't quote me on it, but I'm sure. Like, obviously, I think we all knew that the Doctor was going to get accused of being a witch at some point. I was quite disappointed when it actually happened. I felt like the peril was never really there.
Right.
Like, we never really believed... This was such a great opportunity to kind of make the Doctor vulnerable, to kind of... I almost feel in, like, stages of, like, in Dalek, when Eccleston's Doctor actually got captured and he was being experimented on.
Yeah.
Like, to have that levels of, like, there is a person under all that, and she is vulnerable and can be killed, and to even have the companions having to, like, consider, well, what would happen to us if the Doctor did get killed as a witch? What was stuck in the past?
Yeah.
Again, just because of the pace of the episode, there was just no time for that. There was never that sense of the Doctor was actually in danger here.
Yes.
I loved were they called the Morlocks?
I think so.
Yeah, I
love.
I loved them as villains. I think, again, another classic villain that would not have looked out of place in the kind of, T. Davis, Moffat eras. I think they were very well done. The effects were quite creepy.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, it's not a groundbreaking episode, but I think very much how you feel with Kerblam, when it had rewatchability value to it. It's an episode that I would happily rewatch and have some fun, and so long as you don't take it too seriously. No. Just strap yourself in and enjoy the ride.
Yeah. No. And as I say, I think, like you say, it was an episode more of the quality I'm used to.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was thinking, okay, Kerblam, Witchfinders, are we getting a better quality of episodes here? And that leads us into It Takes You Away.
It Takes You Away.
For me, this might be the best episode of the series for me. I really liked it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in part because I know somewhere in a very bright room there's a frog dreaming of a bigger universe.
I love the frog.
I loved the frog.
So many people got down on the frog.
So many people said that this is ammunition for people who think Doctor Who is just a big joke. I thought the frog was great.
The frog was brilliant. I love the frog.
That was a genius idea. It was just I wanted to burst out laughing, but at the same time, I got it.
Yeah.
Like the whole idea of a universe with a conscience and all that. It would default to those sort of things. It had the voice of Grace. I thought it was funny and ridiculous, but good at the same time.
Yeah.
But we're getting ahead of ourselves here. I liked that everything just appeared to be a MacGuffin after a MacGuffin after a MacGuffin after a MacGuffin. So I liked that it was the monster in the woods was really the dad trying to keep the daughter from running away. This episode's quite fresh for me, by the way, because I only watched this about 3 or 4 days ago.
Okay, yeah.
I got really annoyed when they went into the anti-universe bit and there was that creature there, and I thought, God, if this is just another humanoid villain with, just a man in a prosthetic, but then again, he wasn't the villain either.
Yeah.
He was just some thing that lived in the dimension. I liked the moths. I thought the moths were ridiculous, and I liked them. And then they came out and they're in some weird mirror universe. It was very intriguing. I did not like that the Doctor turned around and managed to explain everything in about 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, it's something my granny told me. How many more episodes are we going to get where it's something that she knows, that the Doctor knows about, that he or she is conveniently just keeping under wraps until it becomes relevant to the plot? That frustrated me big time. It would have been nice if it was just something that the Doctor wasn't sure of. That remained a mystery almost. It would have been, at the same time, I liked the universe. I was really surprised when Grace reappeared, but at the same time it made sense. You know, it was good. It was a shock, but in the right way. Even though she wore her "Let Ryan Die" badge quite proudly, it was, you know, some of the dialogue was a bit ropey still, but for me, one of the better episodes.
Yeah. I disagree on the whole MacGuffin thing. Like, I didn't like the fact that, you know, the monster turned out to just be a recording. I didn't like the fact that Ribbons, I think his name was.
Yeah, Ribbons.
Yeah, that Ribbons, like, turned out to have no relevance whatsoever. Like, obviously, in a way, it kind of... When you've got, like, a character who's just there and who doesn't really factor into what's going on, it does make the universe feel more believable. And it's like, you've not just... Otherwise, you can sort of have, like, well, it's just the TARDIS jumping from relevant plot point to relevant plot point.
Yeah.
It is good that there are kind of bystanders and there are people that are just there. But as a story, I don't think it really worked. I think it just felt like there was another element for the sake of there being another element.
And there was a disjointment. Like, I felt the first 20 minutes belonged to another episode.
Yeah. Yeah.
It felt very reminiscent to, like, Countryside from Torchwood.
Yeah.
And then just jumped into this, like, otherworldly plot. You know, the last 20 minutes I thought were really good.
Yeah.
Once it established what was actually going on, I really liked it.
Yeah. But it was a shame that they just couldn't, like, bring all the elements of the episode in to kind of a conclusion.
Yeah.
You sort of had to have, like, the monster that went nowhere, Ribbons went nowhere, the moths were great because they kind of just added that bit of peril, that was fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would have, but I did like that the episode actually surprised me.
Yeah.
Like, and this is not just a knock at Series 11. I think when you've been watching a show this long, you can sort of tell what each episode is going to be
you can
when
smell
you come
the
in.
beats coming.
Yeah, because you've got your present day episodes, your famous people episodes, your base under siege episodes.
Yeah.
I came into this thinking this is going to be a base under siege. This is going to be them trapped in a scary house with a monster outside. There'll be a bit where the Doctor goes out with a machine and she's like scanning around and she sort of first sees the monster and tries to reason with it.
Yeah.
I was like, this is what that episode's going to be. That's great. Love those kinds of episodes. Obviously, it was nothing like that at all. It went completely different direction. And credit to it, Doctor Who has actually surprised me again, which is great, and which is something I never thought I'd say about Series 11. So, yeah, maybe I'm a little bit bitter that it didn't sort of go the way I thought it was going to go, and there were some sort of dangly bits, but, you know, on the whole, it was a great episode, and I love the frog.
Yeah. Plus, I thought the bit was really powerful when the Doctor took advantage of a blind child to write a message on the wall saying, "Assume her dad is dead."
Yeah.
Like, obviously he wasn't dead, but I actually got a bit of the Doctor's other side there.
Yeah.
You know, not just some happy, laughy, bouncing, talking about sofas and stuff, or just getting really animated about stuff for the sake of being animated. This was like, that is logically what someone would write on a wall, as bad as it sounds.
Yeah.
You know? You would take advantage of the fact that you couldn't convey that really harsh message to a kid who wants her parents back, of, you know, writing it on the wall. I just thought that was a really powerful moment.
That was good.
I just really liked it. I just really liked it, and the frog was like a standout bit for me. Plus, even though it was a bit cheesy, I liked that Ryan called Graham Grandad.
Yeah.
Like, I was watching that with Liv, and that moment came and went, he called him Grandad.
Yeah, that was well done, because I think we all knew it was coming from the very first episode that was set up.
Yeah.
And it would have been so easy to have done it in, like, a moment of peril, you know, in the final episode where one of them was dying or something.
I'm glad it got its own moment.
Yeah, but it got its moment, and it came out of the blue. None of us... It was an episode early, for one thing. Yeah. None of us saw it coming. It was a very low-key kind of moment. It didn't make a big fuss out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it definitely prompts to that. That was well done.
I really liked that moment. That was very good.
I think those three, the Kerblam, the Witchfinders, and It Takes You Away, that was a good run.
Yeah.
That was a really good run.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? That felt like classic Doctor Who again. That felt like
a solid run from about episode 5 to 8 of a series.
Yeah.
Or, you know, in terms of solid middle ground. You know, usually in a series by the penultimate episode you'd feel some sort of foreshadowing of stakes to come and things like that, which obviously we haven't got.
But that's a problem of the... Well, it's not a problem. That's an issue of the overall series as opposed to the episodes themselves.
Yes.
Should we talk finale?
Yes. Now, you came in and I just finished watching it, so this episode is incredibly fresh for me. I still don't know how I feel about it at the moment. whether it was fine or I didn't like it. I didn't like blow my mind or anything like that. So let's hear your thoughts on it.
The thing is, like, it wasn't really a finale.
No.
It wasn't a finale because there was nothing really to conclude.
No.
There'd been no kind of build-ups to anything, no dangling threads to be picked up on. It was just another episode that perhaps raised the stakes a little bit more.
It felt like episode 7 or 8 of a series rather than the finale of a series. That's the best way I can put it. I felt that very early on. Obviously, they brought back forgettable villain number 1 of the series, which, like, it don't get me wrong, it surprised me when it came. Oh, they brought back the Stenser again. At the same time, I was sitting there thinking, have we been with this character enough that we'd appreciate it coming back and wanting revenge on the Doctor? You know?
I mean, yeah, I liked Tim Shaw a lot more the second time. I think he had, because he was like a bit weaker, a bit kind of, because he'd been beaten, I felt he was a more interesting character.
Yeah.
Like, by the end of the episode, I would happily see him again. Like, I would happily kind of have him sort of become like the Missy of Jodie Whittaker's run, like the kind of the recurring character with the slightly awkward relationship with the Doctor.
See, for me, I liked that he was just a semi-forgettable villain that Jodie Whittaker's Doctor poked fun at in the first episode.
Yeah.
I don't like that he's on this pedestal of a potentially recurring villain. I think Doctor Who deserves a better calibre of recurring villains, for me personally. So when he's there at the end, and he's like the big bad of the series, if you like. I don't think this series has really had any villains.
Well, that's it. He was probably the best of a bad bunch.
But exactly my point. Why? I saw a trailer for the episode, and it ended with Jodie Whittaker's Doctor going, "I know that voice." I remember thinking, is there somebody coming back here from a previous series? Is Doctor Who going to go for it and really like address canon? No, it's bloody Tim Shaw.
Yeah, it's a shame. It was a real shame. But I enjoyed the episode for what it was.
I did too.
Like, it wasn't a series finale.
No.
Maybe it was never supposed to be, because it was only like a few weeks between that and the New Year's Day special.
It felt like it had higher stakes than the previous episodes. But the Uks were a bit odd.
Yeah.
Just these beings that we've never heard of before that can just shape the universe.
Yeah.
It just felt really weird that they've suddenly found out about them. Again, the Doctor knows about them, we've never heard of them. Again, I suppose, when you're rebooting a series, that might come across as me nitpicking. I don't know whether I liked or I disliked that. I liked that their faith was hijacked by Tim Shaw. He became like a false god to them. I just wish it had been a more powerful villain that I respected and feared, but not once during that did I feel like anybody was really in peril.
No. What really disappointed me was the whole thing with the planet apparently screwing with your mind.
Yeah, which wasn't played on.
Yeah, and you had that moment where like the Doctor and Yaz had to remove their blockers.
I think they had them back on 2 minutes.
Yeah, later. And nothing came of it. You're expecting like, this is a moment where we're really going to see the Doctor in
stakes
danger.
Are gonna
we're going to see that other side of her come out that's been missing. This would be the perfect time to bring that in. It's the series finale.
Yeah.
And I say, all she did was get a headache and then put it back on a minute later. Yeah. That was such a wasted opportunity. I liked, obviously, the way they had Graham seeking revenge on Tim Shaw.
Yeah.
That was well done. Perhaps not focused on as much as it could have been.
Yes.
But maybe it was okay that it wasn't played up too much. It was just kind of there. It was a bit of a throwback. It felt like, because obviously that's been the main part of his character, that he's been getting over his wife. So it kind of worked bringing that back into the spotlight in the final episode.
Yeah.
And bringing some conclusion to that. Obviously, we all knew that he was never going to kill Tim Shaw.
Yeah.
But it was nice that it was there, and it was nice that you had that sort of character development. It kind of felt like
it gave another side to his character.
It gave another side to his character, another side to the episode. Earth never really felt in peril at all.
Not at all. It got shown once on the screen.
Yeah.
And then obviously when the laser beam.
Yeah. Also, I'm plagiarising Den of Geeks review here, so please forgive me. But
I haven't read that review yet.
They point out that why does Tim Shaw just happen to be attacking Earth when the Doctor arrives?
That's a very good point.
If he's been like absorbing planets like this the whole way through,
why has he not already done it?
Yeah, and like obviously the possibility is he was waiting for the Doctor, but if that's the case, just say it. Don't don't leave it that as like a bit of
we've only just got the resource to do it as you arrive.
Yeah, or like he was waiting for the Doctor to arrive so she could witness it, or something like that. Yeah, there's leaving things to the imagination and there's lazy plotting, and that definitely comes under the lazy 100%. Plotting banner.
100%. I
liked the Doctor's final speech, actually, at the end of the episode.
I did, and then the episode just stopped.
Yeah.
Like, there's, I want finales conventionally. They shake the foundations of the companions. It really makes them see how perilous the universe is. But they just went the TARDIS and that was it.
Yeah.
There's never a moment where they went back home and tried to just catch a breath. They just went to the TARDIS. That was it. Now, obviously, they might be having the true stakes revealed in the New Year's Day special. I don't know, but it just felt very much like the episode just stopped. I liked the speech.
Yeah.
It just felt very much like it just stopped in the water. The planet as well, Ranskoor, Kolos, I think its name was. I wanted to see more of it. I wanted to see more of this battlefield. When it was called the Battle of, I was expecting a battle. Instead we got the bloody robots from episode 2, which were just insert cardboard cutout villain number 37. Visually, again, as throughout the whole series, it looked great. I liked the effects. I liked the set design. The interior of the spaceship was nice. Like you say, Earth never really felt in any perilous position. It's like he was trying to insert stakes, but nobody cared for the stakes because they haven't been there throughout the whole series. If I'd been used to a higher quality of episode, I'd probably say that was a bad finale, but it probably goes down as a meh episode.
Yeah.
In contrast to what we've seen so far,
it felt very fitting. It felt like the correct finale for series 11.
This series, yeah.
Yeah, any other series that would not have worked, but given the quality that we've come to expect and the type of series this has been,
yeah.
I'm okay. Like, I feel like we're probably in a position where we can start concluding now.
Yeah.
It's definitely been a low-key series.
Yes.
And
it's been a safe series.
Yeah, and I think that's okay. I think it's okay that because what I want to talk about with the viewing now, obviously
you know more about this.
The viewing figures now, obviously the woman who fell to Earth, was it
8.2, I think.
8.2. Yeah. It's dropped. I think last time I checked, I think it was down to 6 point something. But that's
still relatively high.
That's still relatively high.
That's higher than the average for Capaldi's last series.
Exactly, and that's the thing. Now, I love Capaldi's Doctor. I love what he did with Moffat. I think the two worked so well together.
Yeah, they hit the formula.
Yeah.
On. But this is a good point that you raised a few weeks ago, which is
the ratings were low.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter what the fans think. It doesn't even really matter what the critics think. It's the numbers that will dictate whether a show gets renewed or not. That's all that the BBC care about.
Yeah.
And if, so when you look at Series 9, which I think in many fans' opinions is the best series of New Who of all time.
Yes.
But that had one of the lowest ratings a series of the show has ever received. Yeah. This is, in the eyes of many fans, putting myself included, the worst series of New Who there's ever been.
Yes.
But the ratings are higher. And it almost feels to me like, as Doctor Who fans, we have been gifted with at least 3 years, longer if you look at some of the highlights of Matt Smith's series, of pure, unadulterated fan service.
Yeah.
It's been trying new things, it's been playing with the formula, it's been going deep into the mythology. I mean, if you had told me in 2009 that Gallifrey was going to come back, I would not have believed you. I'd be like, no, that's just not possible.
Yeah.
It's happened, and it works. It works so well, and it was such a treat. It's just been so enjoyable seeing everything that Moffat and Capaldi and Smith. To be fair, I think Smith had some really humdingers in his run.
Yeah.
But still, just as a whole, it's been fantastic, and we were really blessed by that.
Yes.
But the casual audience has been lost.
Yes.
And so it almost feels like we need to pay our penance now. It's like we have to sit through, and I will go on to say more about this, but we almost have to sit through a Doctor Who show that just has to step back, come down, and just get the mainstream fandom back on board. Now, whether that will work with Series 11, I don't know. The ratings seem to suggest it has, but whether it's actually worked, I don't know.
Yeah.
Now, I think Series 11 could have been so much better.
Yes.
I think there were many missed opportunities. I think the obvious comparison is Series 1.
Yeah.
And when you look at Series 1, Series 1 had some... Series 1 is still a fantastic series.
I will happily watch Series 1 right now.
Perhaps, as it is still perhaps the most... The best structured New Who series, I think, in terms of, like, everything gets built up and, you know, comes together in the finale. I don't know about that. I'm still kind of working it out, but I can see a strong argument that, you know, just in terms of the overall series arc, it's perhaps the strongest. And Series 11 could have been that. You know, as I said before, it just proves when you look at Series 1, that must have succeeded, because when you look at how successful the David Tennant era was, that was all built on what Series 1
of Chris
achieved.
Yeah.
So, you know, that was a success, and it feels very sad that Series 11 has not been to that level when all the evidence suggests that that is what works, that is what is needed.
Yeah.
And I do feel like Series 11 has been watered down far too much.
Yeah. It's, if you look at it like a spectrum,
Yeah.
so at one end you've got ridiculous fan service, which is Peter Capaldi's vintage series.
Yeah.
At the other end you've got totally starting from the ground up again. This has almost gone so far the other way. Like, for me, there's a right way to get the audience back on board, and this has gone so far the other way. You know, I totally respect the idea of let's start from the ground up. Let's reinvigorate an audience. Let's get them enjoying the show. And okay, yes, we've loved the show, but I totally agree that for a lot of fans, like, classic example being the time of the Doctor, where you needed like an A level in Doctor Who to understand everything that was going on. But this series has gone. What I won't stand for is poor writing, companions that aren't developed, very forgettable episodes and villains, not even mentioning the canon that's come before it, almost being ashamed of it. And even though, you know, for me, the more I think about it, the more there really needs to be just a moment of, yes, Jodie Whittaker's the Doctor. Like you say, there were so many missed opportunities, and the BBC's insistence to play it safe has, yes, it's given us a Doctor Who series, and it means we get a New Year's special. But have you heard now that Doctor Who might not be back till 2020?
I think that's pretty much confirmed, isn't it?
Yeah.
Which could well be a positive thing.
It might be. And if that means that they work out where their middle ground is now between keeping the general audience on board and not cheesing off actual fans of the show, then great. But for me, if there's more series like this, I'm concerned for what the show will turn into, because, like you say, you know, let's not alienate the general public, but at the same time, not treating the fans and not rewarding the fans and giving them what they've invested many years of watching the show into is just not. It's not insulting, but it's just a shame.
But I as the Doctor said at the end of the series, the universe may continue to surprise you.
The universe may continue.
And in many ways, I think Doctor Who may continue to surprise us.
I hope so.
And I think when you look at, even, like, most people consider Series 5, 6 to be perhaps the highlight of New Who, if not even, you know, if not just Matt Smith's
that got
era.
the balance spot on.
Yeah.
For Series 5. Yeah.
But, like, there were some people saying that the show was dead at that point.
Yeah.
Like, there were some people saying that it was just going to fizzle out. Like, Moffat had killed it, and look at how we remember it.
Yeah.
And I just think, how are we going to look back? Perhaps not necessarily on just Series 11, but on the Whittaker era and the Chibnall era.
Yeah.
Say in 5 years' time.
Yeah.
It's early days yet.
Of course it is.
Series 11 was a disappointment. I'm not going to water that down. I'm not going to bounce around that subject. I am disappointed by it, but I'm not prepared to condemn it, because we just don't know. We don't know how.
Of course, hindsight will be a beautiful thing in a few years when we'll look back and we might see this as such an important series of Doctor Who in terms of getting the numbers back on board.
Yeah.
But you know, we'll await that, I suppose.
Yeah.
Things that could have been done differently. I'd have liked them to have settled on an idea for what Whittaker's character, what Jodie Whittaker's Doctor is supposed to be. She's a great actress, and in some of the lines where she wasn't running around being daft, she actually commanded the screen, and I feel like she could be a good Doctor. I haven't seen enough of that. Chris Chibnall, again, I'm one of the biggest fans of Broadchurch. The way he writes that show, I'm still a fan of Chris Chibnall, but he's brought none of the intrigue over to Doctor Who, and something needs to change. Whether that came because the BBC put pressure on to dilute his episodes, I don't know. But for me, it was too simplified. Hopefully, this episode is used as a platform to bigger and better things. Off the basis of this, I will not look back fondly on this series if it, like you've said, if in a few years it surprises me, then, and we've got a better quality of Doctor Who again, then brilliant. But we will live to see. I'm more hopeful for the New Year's special. Now, very quickly, because I'm not aware of what the time is, but I'm sure we've gone on quite a while. What time is it? Your phone's off. Goodness me, okay. Not even sorry. We're actually going to the pub straight after this, and we're spectacularly late for that now, but I'm not even sorry. The New Year's Day special, obviously the Daleks are in there, which for me helps fulfill that theory that there's licensing issues and that Chibnall's almost begrudgingly put the Daleks in to this New Year's Day special. It does look interesting, and this bloody podcast will probably come out after this New Year's special, so we might completely contradict ourselves, but I'm cautiously optimistic for that. For me, a Doctor's first interaction with the Daleks always needs to be a memorable moment, so I hope they get that right. For me, it's like you say, Doctor Who, we can afford it a few missteps. Let's hope it doesn't continue. Is essentially, that's where we can tie this up in a bow. I think. Have you got any other...
No, I'm done.
You're very much aware of pints now, aren't you?
To be continued.
This has been the first episode of Beard and the Boyo. I have no idea when there will be another, but if you're still here, hope you enjoyed your now cold cup of tea, and we'll join you for some sort of topical debate in the future. Thank you very much, and ta for now.